So thanks for clicking onto part 2 of the anime API caller using an intersection observer. It's kind of like a weird title and weird idea. And I didn't think I made it clear last time because this is like really focused on being an infinite scroller video, or at least that's kind of what I'm doing in this project. But intersection observer is really powerful and it could be used for a bunch of other stuff. A lot of animations and cool effects as people will scroll down on their websites are made using this intersection observer. So I think this is only touching the base of what it can actually do. So right now, again, as a quick reminder where we're at, we've created a list, we're grabbing the data correctly. If we go back to the code, we did a little bit more extra in the previous video to just start setting up the observer this video. We didn't need to set up the state and stuff like that here because we're not actually changing any state, which is why we don't even have page in the dependency right now. I'm gonna go ahead and add that because we're about to set up the observer. Then we'll need the page to be a dependency. Use effect, whenever it's called, it will re-render the page. So when this re-renders, it's gonna have our previous array in it. We're gonna add more data to it, then it's gonna get incremented with the extra page, call it, and then show that new render there with all the new information. So that's why we have the use effect. So we're just gonna add a few things here. What we're gonna be using for the intersection observer, this idea is coming both from reading the intersection observer docs and from looking up basically this. I just look up how to use an intersection observer in React, how to use like web APIs in React. And there's a number of videos here. I use this one by Hamid Baharam. In his video specifically, he doesn't have like a tutorial with the app. He just shows mostly off the code. So again, I'll show this off real quick, just because for me, I feel like sometimes, again, I watch these videos and I think the most important part is not the idea of the portfolio project. It's not doing the portfolio project. I think building projects is what's helped me become better as a programmer. So highly recommend that. Just knowing how the heck did you go through it and how did you do it without using like AI and stuff like that, right? Or when did you decide to use AI versus not? So I think getting really good at reading the documentation, being able to know when to look stuff up. Yes, AI will tell us directly, but having that skill and combining it with AI questions is really powerful. So the main thing that we'll be creating today is this. So that's how I figured that out. I'm going to link the video in the description because he explains his choices for why he used the callback, why he used the ref. I'll try to give a pseudo explanation of what I understand. But again, I didn't come up with this idea, so I'm probably not going to understand as well as he did. All right, but I'll explain that as we walk through it. We'll need is a use effect and useRef here. We need these because use effect. Why is it red line here? I think this is fine. I think it's just because we're not using it. Oh, it's because we already have it. I meant use callback, not useRef. Okay, there we go. So the use effect and use state re-render anytime anything changes with them, and then the use callback and use ref do not re-render. They hold their values throughout the renders, so that's why we're using them. We're gonna go ahead and set up the observer now with a use ref, and we're gonna set that to null, because the observer itself expects a null value until it does reach its intersection. I set up a number of values here. The goal for this video will be to basically get the observer working. Depending how fast we get that done, we'll either add the styling in this video or make one last part where we just style and make it look nice. But basically the main logic for the video will be done today. So now what we're going to do is we are going to set up a loading gate for the observer. Basically, we're going to need two things. One thing to be able to gate off the observer, and that'll make more sense when I set it up. I'll even be able to show you a quick example of what would happen if we didn't have this. And we'll need to use a state loading so we can increment the way we're going to be setting up the counter right now. So I'll explain that here in a second. Let me just set this up. So set state loading. Proud of myself because I always forget with the use state that we need the array. True. Oh wait, where's the false? So what is the use state for? It's going to be for our slot count. So with the slot count, to make a render count, and we're gonna have that be the length. And if state is loading, we're gonna add the slot count to it. So if we need these extra slots, we're gonna count them. If not, we're just gonna put 0 here. So what's going on here? So what we're building is when these go down, I try to load it past the monster thing here. If you do it fast enough, there's eventually going to be a place where you beat the actual API. So there's going to be a loading. We could either do a wheel. I think what looks nice in the example I showed before was showing like almost like this outline, right? Like a box with the text loading underneath it. What we're going to be doing is passing that to slot, and it's going to decide, am I getting an anime right now or not? If it's not getting an anime, it's going to show the empty box square. And basically what we need to do to get to a place where it's not showing anime is make the list a little bit longer. So we're going to be using the previous length of that list, which is 25. And if it's loading, we're going to add 9 more to it. And it's going to go through those 9 and it's going to check, oh, it's not an anime, so it'll render the other ones. So this is the best way to set those up, and that's kind of how we're going about it. So that's why we have the state loading, the slot count, and the render count. They work together to give us the rendering. This has nothing to do with the observer. This is more for that second part, but we're setting it up now because, again, I want to set up the rest of the logic here. It's not much logic. So we're now going to set up the callback. Okay. We're going to put a node in here, and the first thing we're going to do is check if we're receiving a null node. Now we need to check if we are looking at the current observer. If that's the case, if we're at the last item, to avoid re-renders, we're going to disconnect it here. And now if we've done all that, we are going to set the observer or find the new intersection observer. So once we get to this point, it's feeding it. This will be receiving a list entries. Entries just what I'm using. It happens to be what the docs use. If we go to observer, we go here, take a sip of coffee while I'm loading this up. So basically what we're doing right now is making this entries for each entry. And as you can see, what it's passed is the DOM elements that it's being viewed, right? So that's how it's going to be able to tell when it intersects with what we're looking for. Okay. And so we got to remember this is a array, so we're feeding it an array. So we're going to get the first value, each value of the array. And if it's intersecting, we want to move forward. Also, we want to check that it's not, I just caught myself here. This always catches me with the references that this is just a reference, right? So there's no value here. You do need to call the dot current so we can actually get that value. Dot current. We need to check that it's not loading to do what we want to do. And if it's not doing that, then at this point, this is kind of where we set everything to true. And this is also where we're going to increment the page, which will cause the load. So the moment we see the value we want on the screen, it's going to call the useCallback, which will be fine since it doesn't re-render. And as long as all these things are okay, no null value, not currently loading a new page, these kinds of things, then we will increment that page. So first thing we're going to do is set the .current loading to true because we're about to load a new page. I'm sure I have some type of syntax error, but we'll figure that out here in a second. I'm going to figure it out now, actually. Okay. Is that what it wanted? Like that? I think that's what it wants. Yes. Oh, man, whatever. 0 dot is intersection and observer is obvious loading dot current. There we go. Okay, set state loading to true. Then we're going to set the page to page +1. And then just in case, because again, the biggest issue here is this happens really quick, right? And since it's a reference, it's going to be holding these values throughout render. So there will be like microseconds that intersection observer, the thing that we were looking at, that last element, stays on the screen while it's connected. So we need to keep making sure that it's not recalling. So we're going to connect. This is just a safety check here to make sure that there's no connection. Here, we're going to go ahead, and once we get to this point, we've now found the new last element. So we're going to go ahead and observe that node. Okay. And then we're going to set the dependency list, just an empty list, current observe. Could not find a name observer. Oh, There we go. And did I do that twice? Yep, I did. And then last anime is declared by not used. Okay, so this should be good here. It's not going to be doing anything because we're not actually calling the reference yet. Let's go ahead and set that reference here to prev.length. Oh, what we need here is actually an index in order to be able to check this. So we're going to do index and prev.length. Oh, prev.length. If we reach the last element -1, then we're going to call last anime, no parentheses, and if not, we're going to return. We're going to give that value null. So we're just going to keep feeding it null until we reach this anime. Because we have this in the list now, it should work. And the only other thing we got to do real quick is set the state to false here. So is.current is equal to false. And then is set state loading will be false here as well. Okay, and I think that should be it. Let's go ahead and see what's happening on the callback here. Okay, prev.length. Yes, we want to add this, not okay. So we got our first page. I didn't actually put any prints in the callback, so I should check that. So there's monster. So we just loaded in a new page. We'd see that. So this is working perfectly here. So if we keep going, we should start to, yep. So we reached the end. So I'll try to go a little bit faster so we can see that we're reaching the end and then getting another call to that list. Okay.